Hi everybody, and welcome back to Drinks and Design with Heather and Emilia. And today we're going to be talking about Slackwater Brewing and their beer called the Intruder.
This is an India Pale Ale, and full disclosure, Emilia and I are not big IPA fans, but this is the one she chose off the shelf based on its appearance.
Yes, so Heather and I each week kind of pick our beers. One we pick based on local, the other one we pick, or just one that we want to try. Other one we pick strictly based on what it looks like on the shelf. So this is the one that caught my eye, and even though it's an IPA, we had to drink it. So here we are.
Let's crack it open.
Yeah, before we get started, we need to sip this thing.
So, Emilia is pouring that. You can see it's got a really nice golden amber color to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks sort of, it's a bit of a medium colored beer, verging a little bit on the light side.
Golden amber, I would say, is pretty accurate. In terms of body, this is a really medium-bodied beer. It's got a kick from the hops, as it should, seeing as it's an IPA. But it's not, it's still kind of mellow. Like, typically when I sip IPAs, it kind of knock me over. And this one, when you sip it, it doesn't knock me on my ass. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think it's partly because it has that smooth sort of caramel start to it. The hops really come in more in the middle in the finish. So it has some of that sweetness carry through it a little bit, which helps sort of mellow it out.
Yeah, agree with you there. And I believe it even says on the can, sweet light caramel with a citrus bite at the end and a dry finish. Plus, you've got the hops all blended up in there. So, like we kind of mentioned, I think it's one of the better IPAs I've had. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's really tasty.
I'd have no problem drinking this even though it's an IPA.
Yeah.
It's
a little bit more about the flavor. It doesn't linger too much in your mouth. Typically when I have IPAs, it's quite a lingering flavor that happens like hours later.
Yeah, you get that dry pucker.
Yeah, it just kind of sits. But this one doesn't actually do that. It's really, really nice. I think that's what makes it so enjoyable for me. Before we jump into the vibe, I also like to chat about the mouthfeel of a beer, and I'm gonna say that this one is simple. It's not crazy carbonated, which is really nice. It actually lets you enjoy the flavors throughout the beer without it being too much of like a punch to your throat. It's good. It's good. The mouthfeel, simple, and we like that.
So for vibe, we both had somewhat different interpretations.
Yes.
Mine is that I can picture myself drinking this while camping with a canoe, like specifically with a canoe. So if you don't have the canoe, the vibe isn't there. It's integral. The canoe is integral to the vibe. But I could totally picture, sitting next to a campfire by a river with your canoe, drinking this.
It's a good
just
day.
Super chill.
It's a good day. On the contrary, the vibe that I get from sipping this is I think this would taste really good with food. Specifically, a charcuterie board with a lot of cheese on it. So your vibe options or sipping pleasure options are in a canoe or with cheese.
I would actually choose number 2 because I am a sucker for cheese.
Yeah.
And this would go really well with meats and cheeses, actually.
Right? Yeah, so we're going to go hit up a cheese shop and sip this with cheese later. A little bit about the brewery itself before we kind of jump into the design section. Slackwater Brewing is actually based in Penticton, BC. I'm going to read this based from the website. Slackwater stands for the moments between life's ebbs and flows, especially those enjoyed with friends, family, and beers in hand. So their brewmaster, Chris, he actually worked at a bunch of breweries on the coast first before he came to Penticton and settled here. And again, I'm going to read this from the website so I don't get it all messed up. But his brewing philosophy is focused on simplicity, balance, and approachability with some newly inspired local infusions from the Okanagan's natural landscape. So I think we can both agree it's quite approachable and also incorporates a bunch of Okanagan elements, and we both really like that.
Yeah, I would say this is it has a simplicity to it. It is a very approachable IPA in particular. Mm-hmm. I know that IPAs, people either seem to love them or hate them.
Yeah.
This one is definitely sort of like your gateway IPA. And yeah, it just feels like the Okanagan.
Yeah. Feels like the Okanagan. That's a good tagline for this beer. Feels like the Okanagan. All right. So jumping into the design section of the segment, as we kind of mentioned at the beginning of the video, we pick one beer based on like something we want to try, and the other beer based on what looks good on the shelf. So this one drew me in very much from just looking at it on the shelf, and I remember Heather texted me and she's like, please don't pick an IPA because I'm not really down for that. And lo and behold, the one that drew me in the most is an IPA. So here we are. Slackwater Brewing is actually a fishing-themed, fishing-inspired brewery. And when I was sipping this and looking at the can, to me, it looked like a fishing lure or a fishing angler spinning in the water, like as you're fishing, trying to catch a fish. So in my mind, this is what a fish sees before it becomes dinner. It lures you in, which it lured us into trying it. I did actually message Slackwater to find out a little bit about the behind the label, and they did say it was actually modeled after a fly angler, if I'm correct. So not too far off. Chatting about their branding and kind of the logo and where they're placing their word mark, it's just up at the top of the can, which makes it really easy to see without being super invasive and without taking up prime real estate where you can fit an intriguing logo. Fit an intriguing artwork. Their logo is actually tucked away on the side, which again, I really like. It's not the front and center thing that would cause you to go and navigate towards this beer, which keeps it really interesting, and I think it's very creative of some of the craft breweries that are coming along. And then in terms of their content on the beer to describe the name, style of beer, and then a little bit of a description, it's a mix of serif and sans serif fonts, both super easy to read, and it's easy to digest what you're about to grab, and the description is A+ for description because I think it describes the beer inside perfectly. So by taking a look at it, easy to digest, and it's really easy to know what you're about to get yourself into.
Yeah, so on the topic of the fonts, the name of the beer and its type are in the sans serif, and then the description is actually in a serif, but it's the tick marks that you would see on a serif normally are very, very minimal on this. It's very subtle, so it still feels like it fits really well with the sans serif, but it's really smart to use a serif for the body copy because it actually makes it easier to read. So, and it provides a little bit of contrast as well between the name of the beer and the type of beer and the larger block of text, which is the description. So it still provides that little bit of contrast while keeping it still looking related and really easy to read. To sum up the Intruder by Slackwater Brewing, it's a very easy drinking IPA. Smooth caramelly start with a nice citrusy hoppy finish that doesn't linger too long on the palate, just gives you that kind of kick.
And then in terms of design, super intriguing. It drew us in.
Just like the fishing lure?
Just like the fishing lure. We were lured and had to give it a try. So A+ for design and creativity, and then also A+ for description. Cheers.
Do you want more great drinks and design related content?
Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Follow, like, subscribe, and comment.
Cheers.